A Tucson author has written a two-part young adult fantasy series. Now, he says readers will enjoy for many reasons, including the fast-paced action scenes or the surreal beauty and mystery of the new worlds.
That sounds fun. Now, author Tobias Wade himself is here to tell us more about The First Man, an Enlightened journey. And Tobias, really good to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself as an author. How long have you been writing?
I've been writing for about 4 years. Well, I've been writing my whole life, but I've been taking it really seriously for the last few years. Right after I graduated college, I was preparing to go to medical school and then realized that would be the rest of my life right there. And so it's always been my dream to write. This is my chance. And so I've been taking it seriously, and I've just published my first novel here, and I'm really excited about it.
So this is the first of a two-part. So
That's right.
Tell us where we start with this journey.
Well, the whole series is going across a young girl who travels through 7 different worlds. Each world is representing one aspect of spiritual enlightenment. And so this first book is going through the worlds of fear, pleasure, and illusion, where she's tested and she passed. And it's been my goal that I'm trying to put a new spin on fantasy, because a lot of people view fantasy as something that's very silly and childish, and a lot of adults won't even read it at all. And this is taking a much more philosophical route, where it's using enlightenment instead of magic as the driving force. And so it tries to be very thought-provoking as well as the exciting.
Well, yeah, and for topics like that, and I mean for such a massive undertaking as writing a novel, what kind of research did you have to do to get to this?
Actually, right before I wrote this book, I was traveling through Thailand and Cambodia. So I went through a lot of Buddhist temples and was researching a lot of Buddhist and Hindu mythology. And then that spread from there to a lot of Norse mythology, a lot of Native American mythology, and all that is woven into the fantasy world that I've created.
And even the title of a book can be telling a lot of what's going to be inside. How did you come up with the title?
Well, I said it was very philosophy-based, and one of my favorite philosophers is Friedrich Nietzsche. And he has this concept of the last man, which is saying man is becoming petty, where man is becoming small. We watch TV, no insult to your viewers. And it's the de-evolution of man. And the first man is supposed to be an enlightened being who is the opposite of this. And so...
And of the characters in the book, which would you deem your favorite?
I really like Riften Rannigan, who is kind of an evil fellow to start out, but you can see later on that he's very conflicted, and he has to make a choice that he abhors doing to save his own people. And it's that conflict within him that tests him to the edge of his conviction. And I really like when my characters suffer a little bit. It brings out something in them.
Well, I think that pressure causes them to become better people.
Yeah, it makes them interesting.
Right? And so would you say there's a lot of pressure points in the book, a lot of character clashes?
There are a lot of clashes because, well, the main character doesn't even believe any of this is real. She's a very reality-focused person who says the supernatural does not exist. And then as it starts to become apparent and her own brother is kidnapped and she's forced to believe it in order to save him, she has to come to terms with her worldview and really revolutionize every way of her thinking.
And so there may be somebody at home that's watching this right now and looking at your book and listening to your journey. Do you have any advice to maybe some up-and-coming authors?
I would advise there's a lot of preparation that needs to be done. I made the mistake when I first started writing of I wouldn't outline very much. I had this idea for a story and said, oh, this is a story I want to write. And by the time I got to the end of the story, I realized it was a different story I wanted to write. I wanted to redo everything. And the same preparation needs to be when you're going to your publishers. I thought if I write a story based on its own merit, it will be accepted. And I didn't really look at what was being published in different genres and what was being successful and what specific publishers were looking for. And so my advice would be to do a lot of outlining for the actual writing and then to research your individual publishers for what they're looking to accept.
Well, and I would imagine that another tip would probably be don't be afraid of the story changing sort of on its own.
That's true.
Would you say that when you
Well, that's why my
started
first book took so long. It's a lot of rewriting. I get to the end and say, hey, this is how it should have started. I go back and now this is how it should have ended based on that start, and back and forth, back and forth.
Well, it's a creative process. Don't push against the creative process. Let it go. There's actually going to be opportunities for people to meet you and to purchase the book, right?
Yes, I'm doing a few different book signings. I just finished one, Bookman's on the 10th. I've got another one coming up on the 24th, Bookman's on Ina Road. That's from 12 to 3 p.m. And then I'm also have my book stocked at Antigone Bookstore, and I'll be around there doing some signings as well.
And when people normally come and see you, do they end up kind of like picking your brain about the book or about your journey?
They do. That's something I always wish I could do with my favorite authors. I always have questions during the book. And I'm very accessible online. I have a Facebook page, which is Tobias Wade's Bedtime Stories, where I post a lot of my stories and talk to my fans directly about what was going on in my head.
So I think that's amazing. It's so great that you came on here and not only told us about the book, but told us about your journey and gave some advice to future authors.
That's right.
I think
Thank
that's
you so much,
so
Tobias.
thank you.
It's been fun. I love talking about myself.
Don't we all?
Well, you can meet Tobias Wade and let him talk more about himself at his book signing on January 24th from 1 to 3 p.m. at the Bookman's on Ina. To get his book, you can visit bardsandnoble.com and search for his name, Tobias Wade.